Let's move to level 4. Level 4, then I've done the obvious connections. Now I want to move to non-obvious connections. Maybe that's because I want my stuff to be interesting 6 months from now, a year from now. I want it to have a longer shelf life. And basically, one of the things you say is that the premise of level 4 is that you're changing the world with your thinking, and that non-obvious connections have some maybe consequences or maybe downsides. And one of those is it can take a lot of time to catch on. And you talk about the Copernicus, apologies for any astronomy fans, dilemma. And then this idea that, what may happen is you may end up with a smaller audience, but that audience has raving fans, as opposed, so say you're 50,000 followers, 5,000 followers, maybe, and these people, love and really pay attention to everything you share, as opposed to 500,000 followers and no one could care less. People don't even probably know they're following you. Talk a little bit more about non-obvious connection and just anything we haven't covered that you think's interesting that you would call out.
I do want to double click on the downsides because, again, it goes back to human psychology. People say they want one thing, but then their actions say another. And I imagine, you read that section in the book and you go, oh, I want to be a non-obvious creator. I want to come up with things that people haven't said
you like
before.
The idea of having novel insights.
Exactly.
Totally.
You like the idea of it, but saying things that haven't been said before is not always comfortable. There's some risk in that, and B, there is a lot of truth to the fact that, look, the more different the thinking gets, you're going to lose a lot of people. There's a lot of the world that doesn't want to think, that doesn't want to be challenged. And so it's not about being like controversial or anything. It's just, when you start going down a rabbit hole of a subject, you start in the obvious land, which is just tell me the basics, but then the further you go, you want the stuff that you haven't heard before. And, this book is a great example. I firmly, every writer should read this book. This book is, there's
I think
not,
it's for any creator.
I agree, but there isn't a book out there that articulates anything like what's in this book. And I've read a lot of them because I was that writer going, give me the obvious stuff. Help me, help me, help me. But the reality is I know that it's going to take a while and it might never happen. Most people might still be saying, hey, you got to go read, Stephen King's On Writing if you want to be a writer. Okay, let's just keep it real. I love Stephen King and I love that book, but there's nothing in that book that actually tells you what to do to advance your thinking like anything in this book. So I think when you get into non-obvious land, you have to be very comfortable with the fact that your mission is way more on impact versus vanity metrics or even sales or any of those things. It's really about advancing the thinking of the category you're in. And for me, I'm very passionate about advancing the thinking in the mega category of writing and publishing.
One of the other questions that I wanted to ask you about is around category creation. And there's a quote in the book that I love, which is, what readers, listeners, viewers, and potential customers want isn't you, it's your category, which I think, one, for a lot of people is probably intuitive, but also shocking. And we'll talk in a second about how nobody really cares about your personal story. But can you talk about that, maybe flesh out that concept, that idea a little bit more?
Yeah, this is a very hard one for people to wrap their heads around, because what happens is most of the time when a creator starts getting attention, they start to drink their own Kool-Aid. So they start to think, I'm the one who's special. And you can actually see it where if you go take your favorite, like I'm a writer, so go take your favorite author, go look at their first book and go look at their most recent book. And their first book, the big font is going to say the title, the idea, right? And the small font is going to say their name. Why? Because nobody knows who they are. And they're like, the only reason you're going to pick up this book is because you're interested in the idea, versus it's not like I'm some big fancy celebrity, right? You're not buying the book for me, you're buying the book for the idea. And then the book does really well. And then all of a sudden they wake up one day and they go, oh, you know what? They rewrite history. So they go, oh, you know what? I was the one who made it all happen. I was the one who was important. So then you go to their most recent book, and what's the biggest font? It's their name. You buy this book because of me. And there's an irony of this where whenever someone's starting out, they most of the time they get it right. They get it right on accident. They go, I'm going to market the category. I'm going to market the idea. I'm going to market the thing that the reader is actually interested in. And oh, by the way, it's by me. And then the more successful the person gets, the more they believe their own hype, the more they believe they drink their own Kool-Aid, the more they think they're the reason people pay attention to them, the more they make their name bigger and the category smaller, until eventually it's all just brand, and then they're no longer relevant. That happens over and over and over again.